that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the not expanding universe, the third timeline, alternate reality ending to the Star Wars expanding universe, which is, of course, you can find for free on on fanfiction.net by Gregory Scott, otherwise known as Hand of Thrawn 45. I have book 2 of Legacy's Edge, which is Empire of Light. I mostly have no complaints with this one, outside of level 1, but overall I really enjoyed this one. I think this may be, of all the post Crucible stories that this guy has written, this is probably the best one. My gripes with this story are the same gripes I have with the actual expanded universe, i.e. Fate of the Jedi, and what I feel has been a consistent misuse of a character/concept. We'll get into that into spoilers, though the thumbnail might have done that already. That being said, if you want a story that pretty much expertly gives you the basis and formulation of what we would see in the Legacy comics in terms of the Fell Empire, this book is perfect. You know, I've had many gripes with Hand of Thrawn 45's writing or characters, and that continues to be the same here in terms of, I feel that no matter how he writes it, Jade Skywalker is just boring. I think most of his new characters are kind of whatever. But the one thing, the golden achievement that he has, that until it is overwritten by an official novel, that I will accept in my heart, is Davik Fell. Because Davik Fell is incredibly written. He's like the best parts of Jag and Gilead Pelion smushed into a new being. That is Davik Fell, and he is absolutely incredible. I love him. My favorite thing the Hand of Thrawn 45 has ever done. So, of course, this is years later from the last story, because we keep jumping like decades. So, Jag and Jaina are really old. Jag is 80 years old. He's the same age that Pelion was in Legacy of the Force. And so we have all of their kids, who are now in their 30s and their 40s. We now have new children that will play a big role moving forward in the official Expanded Universe timeline, with Rowan Fell being a 9-year-old kid. Who else exists right now? Nat and Cole Skywalker. They're already born. So we're slowly turning into the comics, which is good. This is what you would want from an official, conclusion series leading up to the Legacy comics. So, we have the one Sith again, doing a bunch of things. I again continue to think that he is just kind of wasted it. The whole concept of it very much could have been like the Darth Plagueis era again, where it's running behind the scenes in the shadows, but they consistently keep showing their face. You wonder why the Skywalker family and the Solo family never put a stop to it, with the amount of times that the Sith continue to show up across decades. But whatever. You know, in Sword of the Jedi, it at least made sense when he wrote that fan fiction. You know, they defeated Darth Krayt. So, obviously they knew that the thing's still around, but if there's no involvement for like the next 40 years, perhaps they just went away. Perhaps they just disbanded. I don't know. But by having them consistently pop up as a threat, you wonder why our heroes never completely and utterly deal with this. And then the thumbnail. And that's all I'll say there. Not getting into spoilers. Do I think that Hand of Thorn 45 did a better job than Faye the Jedi did? No. It is either equally as bad, if not outright worse. So that was disappointing. Also, again, I like Legacy of the Force. I like the direction that took. You know what my favorite books of that series was? The books by Karen Traviss. I like the Mando stuff. You know what I don't like? The fact that in every single story, Hand of Thrawn 45 has found a way to include these characters for no reason. Sword of the Jedi had the Scrota clan. The last Legacy's Edge book had the Scrota clan. This book has the Scrota clan. You know what I can bet in the next one? It's going to have the Scrota clan. You know what else? Let's make this universe even smaller. Jade Skywalker married a Tainer from the Rave Squadron. One of the Fell children. Yes, they're not married anymore, they're divorced. Regardless, married a Scrota. Because the Mandalorians just have to be in every story ever, even when it doesn't fit, and it is completely and utterly unnecessary. This guy likes Karen Traviss more than Karen Traviss likes herself. And so I can't get behind that. But the overall gist of the story, with the family having conflict, as there's this other conflict going on, and the conclusion of all of that, with what Davik decides to do, was, I could see that being an official story. That was perfection. Amidst all my gripes with it, that was peak. Overall, that's my thoughts. Non-spoiler wise. Again, I will never, ever accept these stories as the official conclusion in my heart to the expanded universe, but they do involve many interesting characters and or concepts that I would love to see in official capacity. Like I said, until overwritten, I'm happy to put Davik Fell in my heart and his entire character arc, which is perfection to me. That's that. I'm getting into spoilers. If you don't want that, get out of here. So Davik Fell, his sons are Vitor and Rowan. Rowan obviously matters for the comics. There's some raiders that are causing problems, and they're like this religious cult who worships a Queen Mother. I already knew. Oh, Abeloth. Nat is 7. Cole is 3 here. So, here's another thing. Alana Solo, Jason Solo's daughter, was chief of state for a slightly longer period of time than Leia. And the one Sith, before she got elected, said that that was a problem and that they needed to stop that. And yet, Hand of Thrawn 45 sets that up in the first Empire of Light story, and then proceeds to do nothing with it in this book. And then Demaya, who was a character in the last book, is Queen of Hapes for 29 years. She also wanted Alana killed. They did nothing with it. One of the best parts of this whole book is when Jag has a discussion with Davik about what is the Empire without an emperor. Because the Imperial Remnant, and that's exactly what it is struggling to find its place in this time period and setting. What with the Galactic Alliance still existing, and them existing, and there's still internal infighting. Jag tried to turn it from a dictatorship to a democracy, much like the Alliance. And yet there's continued to be strife and conflict throughout. As Jag has tried to reform the Empire, but what is the Empire? The Empire itself was created because of a evil man. And yet the Empire, all these decades post his death, after Episode 6, have continued to exist and live. What is the Empire without an emperor? Perhaps nothing at all. One of my favorite parts of the book was that entire conversation. It was written beautifully. One thing I noted was that Vitor Fel feels a bit more rash than Rowan. Also, we learn that Loey is the Jedi Grandmaster. He was elected to be it after Ben died in the last story. Again, which I feel like is wasted potential, but there it is. So the Sith are working with Moff fears and makes sense. And again, I may have dismissed Jade in the beginning of my non-spoiler review. I do feel she grew on me a bit on this book. But maybe she'll have something in the third one that will make me really love her, but they just did not do enough with her to make me really, really care about her. Here's the big thing. Jag dies in this book, and that's kind of a catalyst for Davik's trajectory moving forward. There's also a new Esfa faction that's doing stuff. And that may be interconnected. I don't really care. But there's a lot of tension between Arlen and Davik. Arlen Fel has definitely been more of a Jedi than an Imperial, which is the entire point. Arlen has always put his Jedi duties above being an Imperial. And this is where conflict between Davik and Arlen come in, which ultimately leads to the decision near the end of this book. But hold on, we have to shift gears midway through the story, because guess what? Abeloth is back. 55 years since she was defeated in Fate of the Jedi. Where has she been? Last we heard in Fate of the Jedi, there were random tentacles that were coming around and killing people. Our heroes did nothing with that. They let that happen. And then the Sword of the Jedi stuff, according to Hand of Thrawn, at least happened. And then Legacy's Edge won. I suppose Abeloth might have just stopped to recuperate. I don't know. They don't tell us. They have considered her such a non-factor forever, despite the fact that she was a current problem. But she's back now. Is Hand of Thrawn going to redeem this character? No. She's still a pushover. She can have more than one body, and all of our heroes, despite being way weaker than Luke, have mild degrees of not being able to best her, but in the end, all best her. Maybe if they'd set her up at, the end of Sword of the Jedi as slowly recuperating, guiding power, and that she was in the background of the first book, they'd have something. But they throw her out of thin air to come back into the story here, and they make her the same pushover she was in Fate of the Jedi. Again, does no one quite understand what they have here, the potential that they have here? This is a being, an eldritch horror threat. The only being in existence in this universe right now, more so than Krayt. Even Krayt's minions in this book say that from Krayt's mouth, as he's in hibernation right now, tells them to aid the Jedi in whatever way, shape, or form, because defeating Abeloth is more important than their rise to ascension. And yet, despite the severity of that, and making that sound like she's the biggest threat, and that it's such a threat that the Sith and Jedi have to immediately put their differences aside to work together, she never feels like one. They waste it. 45 wastes it, and the actual writers of Fate the Jedi wasted it consistently. The only one who has actually managed to make the potential aura, the potential scariness and raw power of the character has been Joe Bongiorno in Star Wars Supernatural Encounters. He is the only one who's been able to actually capture that, which is so disappointing and frustrating. This is why I've never been able to appreciate or fully enjoy Fate of the Jedi, because they wasted that potential. And 45 seems to be following suit. And that's not necessarily his fault, as he's being consistent with the universe, but at the same time, he made so many creative liberties with bringing back Jason in Sword of the Jedi. You couldn't make Abeloth be an actual threat here? Right, Tamar Scarata, Arlen's ex-wife, get out of here. And they found the Mortis dagger 25 years prior and did nothing with it, but thanks for letting us know. But the Empire finally starts fighting each other when certain decisions are made by Davik, with the Sith working with Veers. And this is the first time they've outright attacked each other since the Bantam era. Abeloth takes over Jodrum, Jade's husband. And then the second best part of this entire story, Davik declares himself the second emperor of the Empire since Palpatine, setting up the stages of what we will see in Legacy Comics. And that whole speech was absolutely glorious. I loved it. I have no complaints. Thank you, HOT45. I will accept that in my heart of hearts until it is overwritten by an official story, if ever it is overwritten. So Abeloth, again, this extremely powerful, godlike being, her big plan is to frame the Jedi in a negative light on Coruscant, so that way forever people mistrust Jedi, as if she's some sort of moth or disgruntled work employee, by using Jodrum's body to commit atrocities on Coruscant. That's your big thing, Abeloth? That's it? Because you want revenge for the Jedi beating you last time, so it's just ruin the reputation. That's your big scheme. Boring. And through the power of love and friendship and strength, they can't defeat Abeloth, I guess. Even though they totally have in the previous 4 times that we read about her getting killed in different bodies. But whatever. So, Jade uses her power of love, or connection to her husband, to make him come back to himself for a few seconds, just long enough so that he could stab himself in the stomach. Much like when I wrote a season of a stupid show on YouTube with my friends, where this is a whole bit of a rabbit hole, but there's this series called Avengers in the Hills, and it's basically an anime, even though it's live action, but we were stupid children, and we had a whole bunch of seasons with different villains, and the final season had me possessed by Satan. Now, just for a little quick thing, Satan in our fictional universe is not the same as it is in religious circles. It's like there's a bunch of gods, and Satan just happens to be one of them. Anyway, point being, my story as a 15-year-old or 16-year-old, whenever we filmed that, was exactly the same. In the last moments, I was able to gather myself back just long enough because our hero, but except in my stupid high school YouTube series, I actually managed to make my villain seem like an actual threat to our characters who no one could actually beat. However, I allowed the person that was having been taken over by this threat to be himself for a few minutes so he could actually kill himself and save the day. And we have the same plot here. It's fascinating. I'm being a little condescending. It was just really funny to notice the parallels between the two of those, despite the fact that I've never met Gregory in my life, and we are, probably a large distance apart. Maybe he lives right next to me. I don't know. I don't know this guy. But it was just an interesting note. And it's not like he stole it from me, and it's not like he stole from somebody else. This is a very generic sort of thing that's happened throughout fiction. But, as the Bible says in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody's doing a different version of the same thing consistently. But, I would have bought the decision to have Nat and Cole's father kill himself to save the day if they had actually managed to show Abeloth being a threat, which I feel like they failed to do. Because the only way you could do that is by making Abeloth not be beatable, by having everyone who goes against her lose, to make it be more meaningful that the father would sacrifice himself and his form to save the people he cares about. And that's the only way they did it, with the Mortis dagger and everything. But they don't do that because she consistently gets beaten in all of her different bodies. So it just feels hollow. Jaina and Davik talk, and while she understands it, she clearly doesn't approve. There's rift in family. Not the same sort of rift as when Jason went to the dark side, but a rift nonetheless. And lastly, Arlen talks to Marshia, Davik's wife, that she has to keep Davik and the Imperial Knights in the light. And she replies, this isn't a Jason situation. Davik doesn't have the Force. He can't be tempted by the dark side. But power corrupts regardless. You must make sure Davik stays humble, that he stays in the light. And with the same with the Imperial Knights, is they're going to be Jedi. They're going to have the Force. And this, again, is setting up beautifully what we will see in the Legacy comics, which is that the Imperial Knights serve the Empire first and foremost unless their Emperor turns to the dark side. That is the only peripheral. If they turn to the dark side, then the light side of the Force takes precedent over the Empire, which is like the perfect way to go about that. And we'll see that fruition in the comics. But I loved how that was sort of set up in this story. So we have two more moving forward from here. We have the we have the Legacy's Edge 3, and then 4, which 4 is more of a direct prequel to the comics, like happens like right before the comics begin with Nat and Cole. So we'll see how that goes. But until then, guys, may the Force be with you.